Let's have a look at this 3D component that I built using React 3 Fiber. You can rotate this component all around. I have placed two kinds of cameras on these objects. One is a perspective camera, which is having something called front view, which defines how wide the angle of the camera is going to be while looking at these objects. There's another kind of camera which I've placed on these objects, which is orthographic camera, and it's having a zoom in and zoom out feature. As we build this project from scratch, we are going to understand what's the difference between perspective and orthographic camera. I'll be building this component from scratch in this video, so stay tuned till the end of the video and do subscribe to the channel. Now let's go to Visual Studio Code and try to build this component. So I have this new Hello World app that's running here in my browser, and I also have installed few packages in this app. So the first package that I installed in this app is React 3 Fiber. I'll be leaving a link to this documentation in the description, and this package can be installed by using this npm install command. And I'm also using one more package, which is this one. You'll find this documentation link also in the description, and that's the command to install this package in this React app. Now let's go to our Hello World app. And you can see here that I have a simple div tag which is having hello world written here, and that's where we are going to try and build a three-dimensional component. To do that, I'm just going to import few things here. The first component that we are going to need is canvas, which will be coming from React 3 Fiber. There are few more components that we have to import, so I'm just going to import perspective camera, and we are also going to need an orthographic camera and orbit controls, which we are going to use to make this component rotate all around. I'm just going to expand this so we can see it clearly. So these are all the components that I imported from the packages that we installed. And now here I'm just going to replace my hello world. I'm just going to delete it and replace it with the canvas component, and everything that we need to build related to this 3D component will be there in this canvas component. So here in this canvas component, I'm just going to place a color, and there's a property called attach, which will define where exactly I want to attach this color. So I'm just going to put this color on the background of this canvas, and I'll be passing some arguments here, which is basically going to be the color that I want to give to the background of the canvas. Let's keep it a gold for now. So this is going to give a background of gold to this canvas component. And next thing we have to do is to create some objects inside the canvas that we have seen. Like we need to create a round ball and some cubes around it and position them in a way that it looks like a 3D component. So in React 3 Fiber, we usually create an object by using a component that is mesh, and we assign the position to the mesh, and the position for the first object that we are going to create is going to be the origin, which is basically in the center. And inside this mesh, we can define what kind of object we are trying to create. So the first object that I'm trying to create is going to be like a sphere geometry, and it's going to be taking some arguments. So we are going to pass arguments here, and here in the arguments, I'm just going to define what's going to be the radius and the overall size of the circle that I'm trying to create. So that's going to be 1, and I'm just going to keep it 64, 64. You can try different values here. It's going to create a different size of circle in the middle of the screen. And to give it a little bit of color, we have to use another component here inside the mesh, which is going to be mesh standard material, and that's where we are going to pass the color as a property, and let's make it royal blue. That's our first 3D component. Because we are not able to see the color that we have defined here, so here after the mesh, I'm just going to add some directional light, which is going to light up this object, and we are also going to add some ambient light, which is going to light up a little bit more, and then there is going to be a point light. So these are three kinds of lights we can use to light up the 3D objects that we are creating using React 3 Fiber. And here, to make it look more realistic with the color, I'm just going to also pass two more properties, which is going to be roughness. Let's keep it 0.3, and metalness. Let's also keep it 0.3. So now you can see that texture of the object has changed. It's looking more like a three-dimensional now. To give more three-dimensional look to the scene here, I'm just going to add few more objects. So I'll just copy this object and paste it one more time. But this time I'm just going to place it at a position of 3. We'll be able to see one more similar object here at a position of 3. This is basically X, Y, and Z. So I'm placing it at a position of +3 on a X-axis. But this time I'm just going to make it a different kind of object. So I'm just going to change it to box geometry, and we have to change the arguments because this time it's not a radius, it's just the sides of the box. I'm just going to make it square, so sides are going to be equal. So if I save this, now we can see one cube here. If I expand this a little bit, we'll be able to see better. And there's one more thing we can do. If I place the orbit controls here and save this, I will be able to rotate this component. So now you can see that there is a cube and there is a round ball in the middle, and we can easily change the colors. For example, if I want to change the color of the cube, I'll change it from royal blue to, let's say, green. Now we got two elements in this 3D view, and we can rotate this 3D view as we want using orbit controls. So I'm just going to place the few more boxes like cubes here. As of now, we just placed a cube at a position of 3 on the x-axis. So let's copy that and place one more cube, which is going to be a position of -3 to keep it symmetrical. So now there is one cube at +3 and there's one cube at -3. Same way we can also place cubes on the y-axis. So this time let's copy that and let's change x to 0. Y is going to be 3. So now we can see cube on the y-axis. Same way I can just copy that and also place a cube on -3 on the y-axis. Now we got 4 cubes. If I rotate my view like that, that's our z-axis, and we don't see any cubes on the z-axis. So I'll just copy this mesh one more time, but this time I'm just going to place it not on the y-axis but on the z-axis, that is +3. And if we do that, now we can see a box here on the z-axis. And let me copy this one more time, and this time I'm just going to place it on the -3 z-axis. So now if I try to rotate this and if I zoom out a little bit, so now you can see that's the 3D view that's being created with boxes on the x-axis, y-axis, and the z-axis. To make it look interesting, I'm just going to quickly change all the colors. So first box is going to be green, second is going to be orange, third is going to be red, fourth is going to be brownish, and the fifth is going to be pink, sixth is going to be yellow. And now we got all the boxes with different colors, and that's how our 3D component looks. But as of now, we have not discussed anything about the cameras because I have not specifically mentioned what kind of camera I'm going to be using. So it's automatically using the default camera that's there on the canvas component here. But we are going to be very specific about what kind of camera we are going to be using and what's going to be the zoom value on the objects. And we should also be able to control the angle of the camera. Is it going to be wider or is it going to be closer to the objects? To control all that, I'm just going to create 3 states here. First is going to be camera type, set camera type. And this is going to be using, of course, use state, and by default we can set the camera to perspective camera. And let's create 2 more states here. So one of them is going to be zoom and set zoom. Let's give it a default value of 50, and let's create one more state which is going to be front view. So I'm just going to name it as FOV and set FOV, and let's keep the values 50 for now. So we got the camera type, we got zoom, and we got front view. And now we just need a way to control it. Few buttons and the controls here that we can use to control the zoom and the front view. So here above the canvas, I'm just going to create a div tag, and let's give it a style. This is going to have a position of absolute because I want this buttons to appear on top of canvas. Let's give it a Z index, which is going to be 50. And let's keep the buttons from the top 20, left is going to be 60. So that's the div tag, and inside this div tag, I'm just going to create a button, and this button is going to display what kind of camera type we are using currently. And if I save this, now I can see we are using perspective camera. But when someone is going to click on this button, we are going to try and switch the camera. So this is going to have a function, and here we are going to try and set camera type, and we are going to be using a previous. So if if my previous camera type is perspective, then I'm just going to change the camera type to orthographic. Otherwise, I'm just going to change it to perspective. So now if I click on this button, this is going to switch the camera type from perspective to orthographic and vice versa. So that's good. We got a button to control the camera, and we can also put an input tag, and the type of this input tag is going to be the range. And let's wrap it under a div tag, because we are also going to need to have a label on this input tag. So I can put a label here, and the label is going to be front view. So I'm just going to name it FOV. So that's the control for the angle of the camera, and this is going to have a minimum value which is going to be 20, and we can also give it a max value. Let's keep it at 120. You can try to change these values as you want, and this is going to have a value which is front view. That's a state we have already defined, and we kept it at a 50 by default. And this is going to be on change function, which is going to change the value of the front view. So this is going to be receiving the event, and let's set the front value to number e.target.value, because e.target.value is going to be string by default. So before setting it to the front view, I'm just going to change it to the number. So that's going to control our front view, but the front view is applicable only if the camera type is going to be perspective. So I just want to show this only if user has chosen the perspective camera. So I'm just going to put a condition here that this control should be visible only on the perspective camera, and I'm just going to cut this div tag and put it here inside the condition. So if I change it to perspective, this control is going to be visible, but if the camera type is orthographic, this is going to be hidden, because in that case we are going to be using another property which is zoom. So I'm just going to make a copy of this controls and just place one more time, but this time I'm just going to say if the camera is orthographic, in that case the label is going to be zoom, and we are going to have a value of zoom. On change function is going to be setting the zoom, not the front view. So we can change it to set zoom. So now if we look at this, if I change it to perspective camera, I got a front view control, and if I change it to orthographic camera, we got a zoom. But as of now, this is not changing anything. Even when we change the camera type, nothing seems to be happening here. View is not changing at all, because we have not placed any cameras here. It's just using the default camera on the canvas. So I'm just going to place a camera here, which is going to be orthographic camera, and we are going to make this camera default, and we are going to set the zoom value to zoom, which is the state we have already created. But the condition that we are going to use here is if user has chosen a camera type which is orthographic, in that case only we are going to be placing this camera. So I'll just cut this and put it here inside the condition. Same way, I'm just going to copy that and place it one more time and say that if user has chosen a perspective camera, in that case I'll be using a perspective camera, and in that case we'll be using a property that is front view. This is going to be equal to front view, because this time we are not using a default camera that canvas has. We are letting the user to select the camera type, so we can also control the position here. So I can give it a position property, and here I'm just going to pass an array which is going to be 3, 4, 4. So that's where I'm going to be placing my camera. Same way I can also control the position of the perspective camera. I'm going to be using same position for both the cameras that we have. So now if I refresh it, so now we can see that we got the perspective camera, and if I change the front view, this is actually changing how wide the camera is going to capture the view. If we widen the camera angle, it's similar to taking the camera far away from the object, so the objects start looking smaller. But in case of orthographic camera, the camera position is fixed, but we are just increasing the zoom on the camera. So that's the main difference between the perspective and orthographic camera. It's very important, because if you look at the perspective camera and decrease the front view angle, when we are looking from the perspective camera, this box is looking larger than this box because it's closer to the camera and this is far away from the camera. So basically it looks like this box is larger from this one, but actually the box sizes are the same for all the boxes. So basically perspective camera distorts the dimensions of the objects based on the front view. But if we look at the orthographic camera, we can zoom in or zoom out. All the boxes are looking similar in size. It doesn't matter what the zoom is. So it's not actually distorting the size of the objects relative to each other. So that's the main difference between the orthographic and perspective camera. So if you want the source code of this project, you can join my Discord, and that's where I'll be sharing the source code or a GitHub repository that you can have access to. You'll find a link to my Discord in the description. And if you found a value in this video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.